Along Georgia's Altamaha River, stories have circulated for more than a century about strange lights appearing on humid summer nights. These accounts are so frequent that local folklore archives and regional newspapers have recorded them since the early 1900s. The reports describe pale, glowing orbs that rise silently from the water's surface. Witnesses say the lights hover just above the river, sometimes bobbing like lanterns in an invisible hand. They can linger for minutes before plunging back into the water with a heavy splash that seems far too loud for something so small. Fishermen have long feared them. Several mid-20th century accounts describe the lights trailing boats at night, following steadily for long distances before darting forward to surround the vessel. Some locals warn that if one of the lights hovers close for too long, it is a sign the river wants another life. Folklorists have tied the legend to drownings in the river, fishermen swept away in storms, workers lost during floods, or swimmers who never returned. These tragedies, locals say, give the river voices, and the lights are their signals. Scientific explanations, such as marsh gas or bioluminescent organisms, have been suggested, but residents reject them. The lights, they insist, are too deliberate. They appear on clear nights as often as stormy ones, and never in the same place twice. Even today, boaters on the Altamaha claim to see sudden flashes just beneath the surface, or hear splashes with no visible source. On the hottest nights, when the air is still and the insects seem to hush, the river shows its memory. The lights return, moving with a purpose no science has yet explained. On Maryland's Assateague Island, a long barrier beach known for shipwrecks, late-night visitors have for decades reported a phenomenon that has never been fully explained since at least the 1970s. Beachgoers describe seeing solitary figures walking out of the ocean toward the sand long after nightfall. Witnesses agree on the details. The figures emerge in shallow surf, upright and purposeful, but without splashing. They resemble human shapes, tall and pale, with no visible features. Each walks several steps toward shore before halting abruptly and vanishing. No footprints remain on the wet sand where they should have stood. Rangers with the National Park Service quietly noted reports of these apparitions during summer patrols in the late 20th century. One ranger wrote of seeing a figure rise from chest-deep water and walk halfway to shore before dissolving in the salt spray. The location matched the site of an 1891 wreck in which nearly all passengers drowned within sight of land. Locals have come to call them the last walkers. According to tradition, they are the dead replaying their final attempt to reach safety, caught in a cycle that returns when the tides and weather align with the conditions of their deaths. While some scientists dismiss the accounts as illusions created by mist and moonlight, the consistency of details across decades remains difficult to ignore. A 1998 regional history noted more than 24 similar testimonies. Even now, residents warn late-night surf fishers to leave when the water goes eerily calm. The advice is always the same. If you see someone coming out of the sea alone, don't wait to meet them. They aren't walking to where you're standing. In the small farming towns of central Kentucky, there are recurring reports of nights when the air feels wrong. Locals call them the heat nights. Evenings when the temperature holds steady long after midnight, and the air grows thick and still, as if the world itself has paused. Families sitting on porches in the 1930s wrote about these nights in diaries. One farmer's wife described a July evening when the cicadas fell silent all at once, leaving only the sound of her own breathing. The air, she said, felt so heavy it pressed against her chest. In the silence, she and her husband heard what they swore was slow breathing coming from the fields. Over the decades, the pattern repeated. Witnesses described stepping outside into oppressive warmth, with no movement of wind, no calls of night birds, and no crickets. Then, faint sounds begin, whispers like hushed conversations that seem to come from just beyond the tree line. Dogs refuse to bark. Horses back away from fence lines, as if something unseen waits just beyond. Folklorists suggest the stories are tied to the region's history. The Civil War left many unmarked graves in the area, and farmers in the 19th century often buried relatives on their own land. The heat nights, locals believe, are when the land exhales those buried memories. Skeptics have suggested atmospheric phenomena, temperature inversions, pressure systems, but those explanations don't account for what people claim to hear. In 1978, a local sheriff filed a brief report after receiving multiple calls about crowds gathering in empty fields. When he investigated, there was nothing but rows of corn shimmering in the still, humid air. To this day, residents warn that when the heat lingers too long and the night goes silent, it's better to stay inside. The whispers may not be meant for the living, and the air, thick and waiting, may be holding more than just summer. The whispers that begin softly will only grow louder from here. Subscribe to Whispers After Midnight to never miss their call, and let them guide you deeper into the dark.